Fun project of the day. I've got to, hopefully just one day. I had to get that front jack off under there, and one of my bolts tried to strip out with a 12.75 inch socket, so I ended up having to go get a 7/8, and to get a better angle on it, I had to move the diesel fill pipe around a little bit. But the background on this thing is it's a 2008 Phaeton, Tiffin Phaeton, and the jack goes right there, and that's the diesel pipe. I loosened the clamps so it could tilt up and down out of my way so I could wrestle that jack out of there against it. That was a real pain in the arse, but I got it out finally, and one of the 3/4 inch bolts started to strip, so I needed a better angle on it. So I went ahead and pulled the wheel and came in from this side to get to it. And that worked out. But pulling these wheels, I broke my 1/2 inch torque wrench. 1/2 inch torque wrench will not turn 450 foot-pounds. But between an 8 inch pipe and a 3/4 inch, and you're supposed to have a 33 millimeter socket, but I didn't have one. So I ended up using a 1 5/16 to break all those loose. Yeah, 1 5/16 will do it in a pinch. And I got it off. So this thing has Atwood Levelegs on it, and they suck. They've been nothing but a problem. One of them locked up when we were out on the road. I broke it loose with the drill, but then I guess the revolution counts off or something. But it keeps throwing an error on this one. I had a rear lockup, cleared the system, reset the system, and then the alarm cleared on it. So the contacts on the commutator and the brushes must be good, because I hear that is what triggers that alarm. So we'll see if it works. This one, I'm going to pull the motor apart. So this is what I'm up against. The Atwood motor. You can actually hear it. Hopefully you can hear that on the video. Those gears up top, they don't sound healthy, so I'm going to be pulling that all apart and re-greasing the whole thing. But this is what I've got. One of these. A 66-100 motor gearbox. And then the name of the overall jack, it's only a 7.5 ton or 7,500 pound one, made in 2007, which makes sense because my coach is a 2008. So it's a 66334 Atwood Levelegs. So we'll see if I can get it working again. When I turn this manually with a drill, yeah, you can hear that. When I turn that with a drill, it does go up and down still. So I think my gears are still mostly together. So we'll see what kind of damage I find when I get in there. But yeah, definitely needs some work. And hopefully I can get that alarm to clear finally and use my Levelegs. They are working manually right now after I freed up these. I had to spin them quite a bit to get them where they would free up, so I think the grease in there is really bad. We'll see when we get in there. Wish me luck. Alright, so I got the gearbox apart. The grease looks still greasy. It's not too bad. But it definitely sounded dry in there. And this gear looks drier than one of my old girlfriends. Looks drier than a bone. So
Your future girlfriend.
My future girlfriend. So this is the motor rotating pin, and the noise I heard was somewhere above this, which that would be turning what?
That goes in there. This here turns there.
I think it'd be turning this, wouldn't it? Yeah, it'd be turning this.
Yes, this little one here.
So it'd be turning this one.
Yep.
All the gears move. So I think we're okay. But something in there was making noise. So we'll see what it looks like when I get a little deeper. But I heard that noise inside of here, so it's definitely the bearings inside the motor. Yep. Something inside that motor is making the noise. The bearings. Good times. Got the motor housing off here. It was just 2 screws. Take those out and make sure you mark the alignment of the housing to the base. And right in here, can you hand me that pick? Right in here is where they say to clean between these brushes. Whoops. Between these brushes and the commutator here. And it doesn't look that bad to me, but I'm going to clean it with emery cloth to make it shiny again. And clean both brushes a little bit. And hopefully that'll take care of that sensor issue. I don't know how it senses from these wires how many times this is turned, but supposedly it does. There's no other sensor on this jack, just that. So hopefully that'll clean it up. Somewhere in here are my bearings that aren't sounding very good. There's a bushing. But yeah, there's one of my bearings down there. I'm just gonna have to oil them up. I don't feel like pressing them out and trying to replace them, especially since the emergency turning nut is underneath. And I'll probably have to break that free from the shaft, and I don't know how I'm going to hold on to this shaft to get that off at this point. Yeah, if I can figure out an easier way to get in there, I will. But I think that's the noise. Let's see. Shouldn't this spin? Well, I pulled it up. I have to put it back down the brushes. Yeah, so I used emery cloth on here, and I just rotated this to clean it up. So hopefully that's shiny and will send the right signals back to the brain unit. Best I can do, that's for sure. And I think we're looking good. So now I get the joy of putting this thing back together. This down in the bottom, right here, now that I've cleaned it up, I can tell it's just a bushing. Just like the other side of the housing, it's just a bushing. And I cleaned the brushes with Q-tips on the inside. I pried them back and cleaned the inside. This is the kind of schmoo you get out of them that I got out of there. So they were kind of dirty. Not terrible, but they definitely had some wear. Looks like the brushes still have plenty of wear left in them. Plenty of meat there. So I think I'm going to clean this with isopropyl alcohol commutator and clean up any schmoo back here and just put a light coat of grease on this side away from the commutator. I'm just going to put some oil down between that bushing, or maybe I'll grease that shaft where it goes through the bushing, but there's not too much play in it. It's still pretty snug, so I think the bushings were just dry in here is what my issue is as far as that noise. And I think the dirty commutator was probably causing the sensor. We'll see. Proof of the pudding will be back when I get it back together. So this bushing is the same as the bushing on the other side. And that's all that shaft rotates on within the motor. These aren't full-time duty motors, so they don't put bearings in them apparently. They're only meant to run 20-30 seconds at a time. So I guess they feel like they don't need to put an actual bearing in there. But it's interesting to see the way they make these things and how long they hold together. Grease all these up with some kind of blue grease. I'll find some, and I'm going to coat everything really well. That one gear that was dry though, that one really has me befuddled as far as why it was bone dry. But I'll probably put some lube on it too. Now my task is to figure out how to get this apart to lube this shaft. This bushing Looks pretty good. It's a little bit proud right there. There's no kind of washer there or anything. The gear just fits on there from the other side. This washer, I've heard, gets squished by this pin sometimes, and it's not doing that. Looks like that pin will come out pretty easily. So hopefully I can figure out how to get the leg off. I think it might just come out once I pull that out. That might be the only thing holding the whole leg up. We'll see. While I'm in here, it's no better time than now. All right, that was it. Basically, I just pushed that pin out. It only came out one way. Took the washer off. And now this whole piece just rises up, I think. So let's see what it looks like under there. Oh, jeez. This stuff's pretty heavy duty. All right, well, that looks like some shmoo in there. Looks like some shmoo. Some kind of a collar here. I'm gonna pull this out. Hopefully I can get to that whole shaft here after this and figure out how to lube the shaft. Sometimes you gotta lube the shaft. I apologize if somebody's done this. I've seen parts of this on videos, but never everything all together. So I figured I'd film as much as I can. Figured out how to expose the shaft for greasing. You just basically spin it out. I figured it'd be easiest to hook a drill onto it and spin it out with electricity. Smiley face. Yeah, it looks like there's a fair amount of grease in there, which is why it's going so smoothly, but let's see how it comes out of there. Oh yeah. Alright, so basically it just goes up and stops. There's some kind of a spring-loaded doohickey here. I don't know why that's spring-loaded, I guess to help absorb a shock on one end or the other. But yeah, the shaft looks pretty greasy. I'm going to smear a whole bunch more on there. Alright, it occurred to me that I never did an outro for the jack video, so I figured I'd update you folks now how that went. The jack rebuild went fine. The jack worked fine. I didn't see any major issues in the jack itself. It's a nice snowy day here, and I've moved the motorhome down to storage. But it only has 2 working jacks, and here's the story. The jack went back on and worked. All 4 were working. I thought things were great with those Atwood Levelegs POS jacks. Well, not so much. I went ahead and replaced the controller, which was fried. So that jack was still erroring even after the rebuild. So I know it wasn't a sensor issue. The controller itself, which is underneath in the first stowage compartment, behind the passenger side seat, underneath there, underneath in the basement, was where that thing lives. And it was no good. Hi, Fred. Fred's watching me film my video and watching TV apparently. Anyways, so I replaced the controller with a manual system called a Gamma electronics system, which is great. It was built by, I don't know, some dude that owns that company, and he owns that company and did a great job. So that looked really good, and it worked great. All 4 were going up and down. Life was good, but as soon as I tried to use it the first time, the right rear jack stopped working. Well, you'll recall I was working on the right front, rebuilt it, put it together, and that was the quietest jack by far after I did all the greasing and lubing of the bushings and everything else. So that worked fine, but the right rear jack decided to fail after that. Here's the thing with those Atwood jacks. They're old, they don't have parts, and they suck. They were never really rated for the weight of a Class A motorhome. 7.5 thousand pounds, 7,500 pounds in the front, and 10,000 pounds in the rear is not enough for a 40,000 pound vehicle. So away it went, and that stopped working. My jack stopped working. Damn, my fingers are cold. Hang on. Okay, I had to switch hands. Whew, that hand was freezing. So where was I? Oh, the rear jacks. The right rear jack quit working, and the left was still working, and the two fronts were working. So I had 3 out of 4 working jacks after all that work. So I went ahead and put it back together, or left it together, and brought it home and I took off the right rear jack, figuring, oh, I'd just pull it apart, see what's wrong. But it wasn't going up or down with the emergency nut I showed you guys on the bottom. So long story short, it was failed inside. There's lots of stuff wrong with it. I'll send you a picture. Man, I really need some sleep. I'll send you a picture of what was failed inside. Basically, the main shaft is a terrible design. It's 1/2 inch hardened steel, but it tapers down to 1/2 or 1/4 inch on one end, which is terrible. I don't really understand how they expect 1/4 inch of steel to hold up 10,000 pounds of weight on that corner. Anyhow, I've decided those Atwood jacks have wasted enough of my time. I'm getting the Bigfoot leveling system. I have to save my pennies and pay for that, but that's what's happening. I'm putting Bigfoot on there. The Atwoods are crap. Hopefully this video helps you if you want to keep those things running, and if so, let me know. I've got parts for you. I've got 2 working fronts and 1 working, well, not working, because I took apart the other rear, because when I took apart the first rear, it was shrapnelled, like this picture that I'll show you. It was shrapnelled inside that shaft that I was talking about. And then I took the other one apart so I could take that shaft down to a machine shop and have them make one for me. Well, when I took it apart, that shaft on the what I thought was a good jack on the driver's side was also failed. It was failing. It hadn't failed all the way, but it had cracks, stress cracks all the way through the metal, which I'll show you a picture of right now. Yeah, so those are stress cracks through the metal, and it's done. So both rear jacks are done. I gave up. I'm going to bite the bullet. It's going to cost me $6,000+ to put in a Bigfoot system, but I'm done with the Atwoods. It went back in, it worked fine. So if you want to rebuild one and you don't have any stress cracks in your main shaft, which I didn't check for when I was in that one, but if you don't have any, they might hold up for a while, but possibly they won't. So anyways, ditch the Atwoods, move on to something more modern. They don't even make those anymore. That company sold out, went out of business, whatever you want to call it. So there's a reason for that, because they made junk. Thanks for watching my video, and have a great time with your Atwood jacks. Bye.